So we're back at it again this morning. Yesterday afternoon I welded everything closed. Did a little grinding on the outside and the inside, and there's a little bit more I want to do, but it's going to be easier to do when I get the transmission out. And to mock up the tunnel, I just tacked the rear hoop in. So that is all good. And then you'll notice we're missing the rear end, so I took the rear end out because I need to do some work back here, and I don't want to damage the bushings because I need to start finish welding all this up, and I need to create a pocket underneath so we can get the nut on for the bolt that goes this way. So I got all that set up, got everything leveled and squared and supported, even a little cheesy, but it'll work. Just don't want anything to fall on me. So that's where we're at. So I'll start cleaning things up and making pockets, and I'll show you when I make some progress. So I needed a way to get the nut on this bolt for the lower control arms. So I cut myself a pocket so I can get my fingers up in there, tighten the bolt. It's hard at this angle, or excuse me, tighten the nut. And then, just so you didn't have a hole in the bottom of the frame, I designed up these little plates so I can thread the bottom of the frame and attach these onto, just to kind of close it off. So we can put some rubber behind it if we want, or just bolt them up flat, but those will work nice. Well, the next thing I got to do is make some closeouts for the frame here. I cut this off so I could make sure I could get the bolt in and out. So make something up on the plasma cutter and close those off. Well, I got something done with my life. So I got these upper plates welded on, and I just stuck them in place to make sure I had clearance and run the bolt through for the lower control arm. And those are good. And I also got this closeout done on each side for the kicker. And the last thing I just finished up is the closeout panel for the front lower control arm bolt mount. So just some 1024s holding those in place, and just cut those out on the plasma cutter. So probably have some cleanup to do on the slots underneath those, but we'll save that for another day. So I think right now I'm happy with where I'm at welding wise, and everything's about done for the welding on the rear half of the rear third of the car. I think I've got some stuff to do up around the Miata front subframe. Finish that up, but that'll be another day. Just want to check everything where I'm at now. Make sure I've got everything welded, cleaned up, and we'll move on to the next thing on the checklist. Today is roll hoop day, so I got a piece of 1 3/4 tubing, which I'll be using for the hoop. Now this is just seam tubing here, but I actually have DLM, I think it's 080 something, but it's for up to 3,000 pound cars, which should be good for this, and that's for racing purposes. So I've used this to kind of mock up what I needed. So it's about 48 1/4 across here. So I want to give myself a little bit of a gap to get in there with a welder. So that's about a 1/2 inch gap, and I just cut it down to 48 just to make an even number from outside across. And figured my angles and figured my height. So I've come in here and mock this up in Fusion 360. And one thing that I learned a long time ago is that the center of the tube will not bend. So the inside tube, basically, the inside of the tube will compress, outside of the tube stretches. So you work with the center line of the tube, and those will give you the links. So I'm going to come up about 22 inches, do a 20-degree bend, come up another, I think it's 8 1/4, do a 70-degree bend, and then it's like 13.5 to the center line. So what I'll do is lay this all out on a piece of tubing, but the first thing I'm going to do is cut it to length. So I went through all my calculations to make sure everything was right, and then put in all my bend radiuses and how much the circumference was at the center line, and calculated everything out and put on there the 0.75 to minus is how much where the bend starts versus on my bender, the straight part versus where the bend actually starts. So I always have to, like up here, we have to minus 3/4 of an inch from 13.297 when I do my layout. So we'll get a piece of tube cut to length. I'm going to cut it 111 1/4, which is about 4 inches longer than I need, so hopefully 2 inches on each side, and then we can fit it and make sure it's square on the bottom when we get done. So I'll get the tube laid out and show you how I do this. I've got my tube cut to length, so just so everybody knows for sure, this is a 1.75 inch DOM tubing, and if I remember right, it's about 92 thousandths wall thickness. So for the racing series that I do, which is lemons, that's good for up to a 3,000 pound car. So this should be plenty for a street car. The next thing I did was, of course, deeper the ends. So I cut myself, and then to get all the oils off, I just keep a bunch of isopropyl alcohol around, cleaning it really good, so that when you write on it with a marker, Sharpie, that they actually work. So then I found the center of my tube, which happened to be exactly 55 5/8. I go ahead and mark it, so I know exactly where I'm at, and then from here I'll start doing my layout same distance side to side. So I'll show you a little bit of that. So use my layout. Again, I found the center line and marked it that it's on that edge, and then I took 13.297 and minus 3/4 of an inch to move it back, so that's where it starts, but the bend actually starts 3/4 inch farther down. So that's like 12.5. So remember always to mark your edge which you're using. And then I did the same thing, did the 13.297 plus 7.941 for the radius, plus 8.27 for the straight part, and backed up 3/4 of an inch to where that bend starts, and like 28 something, yep, 28 3/4. So I've got everything marked where it's going to start. So if you think about it, you're going to come to here, you're going to line that up on the edge of the die, then you're going to bend this 70 degrees, then you're going to slide this down to here and do your 20, so that'll give you your 90. You do the same thing on the other side, so you can see these are marked at a different spot. They're on this side of the tubing. You just want to make sure you get all this laid out ahead of time so that you can get everything set up correctly and you don't bend it in the wrong spot and have to throw away a, let's see, $6, $7 a foot, so an $80 piece of tubing, 77 something. So this is my JD squared bender. It is a, here you can see it, model 32, and I have the swag coupler mount, whatever you want to call it, for the air-over hydraulic Harbor Freight cylinder. Works real well. I have a 1 3/4 tube die, excuse me, 1 3/4 tube die with a 6.5 inch radius, and that is to the center of the tube. So that's why I tell you, just always work off from the center. So I'll get my tube set up in here and show you how I do it. So I have everything set up in the tube bender now. So the tube is in there. We're going to do the first 7-degree bend. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but there's my mark of where to start, right at the edge of the die. What I'll do is just tighten this up so that there's no play in anything. Check my angle, so I'd actually set my base to 0, 0, so it looks like I'm about 0.7 degrees up. So I'll just use that throughout, and we'll make our first bend. Well, I've got the roll hoop all bent. It's not exactly what I want. It came out at 48 inches, which is the width of the body down at the bottom. So I can probably ratchet strap that, pull it in a little bit, but besides that, I think it looks pretty good. Body fit wise, it's good across the top, which you can't see, and down the other side. And I got a couple of ratchet straps to hold it up, and it's about 94.5 degrees, but besides that, it looks pretty good, I think. Do plenty for driver and passenger protection. So the next thing we'll do is find out what we can do for an X-brace and talk to the owner, see if he wants an X-brace. I know we won't put a harness bar in it, but see if he wants an X or just a diagonal, or what he wants to do next. So I'll show you more when we get there. So I'll try to get this quick before those fall off, because the kickers there up to the roll bar and down are just basically held down by gravity. So I put a fish mouth at the top, around about a 55-degree angle at the back, and they're a little bit different in length, but nothing's round or fit yet, so we'll work on it a little bit tomorrow. It's getting towards the end of the day, and still trying to figure out if I want to put an X-brace in. That's what the tape is for. It interferes with the seat backs a little bit when you lean them all the way back, but I don't know how many tall drivers are going to be driving this and if you'll be leaning back like that. So we'll talk to Mr. Bubba a little bit, and I kind of got a piece of tape over there where I think the harness bar should be approximately. So just trying to get some ideas. I'll probably put some more bracing back here, but that's the gist of it right now. So this is what I was talking earlier. This is kind of what I was looking for X-braces. But the other thing I'm looking at is putting the battery right above the lower or upper control arm mounts in this space here. So it'll fit from side to side. That'll be the long part of the battery, and then back and then up. So I think that'll be a nice spot for it. But we'll get some other things done, and we'll come take a look at that next. But here's a view of the kickers. Looks like I can weld easily all the way around them. And I might put some back also to here, or do a diagonal from the kicker to that corner there. Just make it really strong. So I talked to Mr. Bubba this weekend and asked if he wanted just a diagonal like we've got here on the driver's side, or an X-brace, and for sure we're going to put a harness bar in. And he said, yeah, do whatever you want to do. So we're doing an X-brace with a harness bar. So we'll do the X-brace now, get that all set in with the kickers and an X-brace down to the back, which I'll show you in a little bit. We're going to get to that point. But get to have fun and be creative, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm really happy with the notches. So I went ahead and, as you can see, tacked it on each side. So all the notches look good. Put it right about in the center of the bend. Make it nice and strong. So that'll make a good joint. What I usually do is just take Scotch-Brite and really scuff up the tubes and then take some alcohol and clean them up. So I'm happy with that so far, so I'm going to test it in the car and make sure the seats are clear, and then we'll start working on the X part. So again, got the roll hoop ratchet strapped into the car. It's about as far back as I can go because it's hitting on the upper control arm mount, but that's okay. And with the seat all the way back, it's just touching with the seat, reclined back a little bit. So we won't pick on Bubba, but you know, he's somewhat vertically challenged, not short, but he's shorter than me, so I think this will be fine. As you can see, there's plenty of room between the steering wheel and the seat. So his legs are a little shorter than mine, so I'm sure he'll fit in there fine. Well, there we go. So I just went and notched the two X bars in. So this will be the full diagonal. That's the driver's head right in here, passenger's head. So we'll put this in the car, make sure everything clears good, make sure I can still see out the rear window with a mirror. Probably use my camera for that since we don't have a rear mirror in it yet. But I think that looks pretty cool. And there you have it. That's what it looks like in the car. So I checked it out with my camera as a rear mirror, and it doesn't block the rear window and looking out, so I'm really happy with that. Nice and straight, got my cuts at the right angle, so I have a very good weld joint. So the next thing to do is put our kickers in, get those all fit, and then I think what I'm going to do is do another bar. Hopefully you can see that from that corner up, and that should really tie in the whole rear part of the car here and make it nice and strong. So we'll get working on that next. Well, the roll hoop is all welded together. Did a bunch of checking, make sure my dimensions were right so it fit in the car. Not perfect welds, but I think we got good penetration. And they look good. So, as usual, we'll let this cool down. And we can't do a final check, so what I did was actually tack it together. Check it in the car, everything looked good. Strapped it again, just to bring the sides in a little bit. So it's like 47 3/4 or 47 3/8. And then I put a good weld, probably an inch long, on each tube, at each joint. Went in and checked it again, slid right in. So then I finally welded it. So now we can start cleaning up for the kickers and doing some support bracing, which I'll show you here when I get those ready. So we're looking at the passenger side area at the back of the door, and this is where the tube is going to sit. So we've got a lot of strength from this plate. It's 3/16, and I've got the structure here for, you know, if the roll bar gets pushed down, there's quite a bit of structure there. But all we have on this side is sheet metal, which gives a little bit of structure, but not much. So this is cantilevered out about 1.75 2 inches. So I think I'm going to do is clearance this out so I can get my welder in and go down in there and put a angle brace. So go across here and then down to the main frame here. So if it does take a rollover and pushes down on this plate, it's going to have something to counteract that force. It'll push it into the frame, make it a lot stronger. So we'll get this out and see what we can do. So I got my little support plates made, little brackets, welded those in place, and then went ahead and vacuumed out the inner rocker so everything is good. And then I made a plate to fit in here that I can weld against the frame rail. weld along here, and then weld along the, probably the inner rocker, I guess you call it. Just tie everything back together. This will all be covered with sheet metal anyway, so that's what we're doing next. As you can see, maybe we got both sides in now. So now I'm cleaning everything up to put the roll bar in, roll hoop, and the down bars. So get that all cleaned up in the back, and we'll get that set up and tack it in place and make sure everything's good. So I went ahead and tacked in the down bars this morning. So I just got a tack underneath at the top and a tack underneath at the bottom. So I still want to play around with some few things. I wanted to do the diagonal to the back from here up to there, but the problem is I get a little bit of blind spotting in the mirror, so I can always put those in later, but right now the roll hoop is attached in, the down bars are tacked in, so we should be safe for now. So now I'm going to go on to the next thing on the list. Let's find out what that is. So we're working on a way to put a battery in the car. So what I've done is I mocked up, in a sense, this is where the passenger seat would be. So here's the roll hoop, the diagonal, and a kicker. And I need to add a battery in here. So I've modeled up a Optima battery, which seems to be pretty good. Got them a couple of my cars. This happens to be a red top 3478. So I said, let's see if we can put it back there, just above where the front upper control arm mounts. So I went in, and we'll start clicking on components here, and designed a battery hold down system. No, there it is. There's a mount over here to the roll tube, and there's a mount that I don't have set in there because it'll be something you kind of fit, but it's a little mount that's going to mount on the opposite side of this tube here, the kick-up tube, so that this side will set on it. So will be supported here, will be supported, turn off some stuff. Let's do the battery box. Turn some of this off. So you can see that mount. It's got an upper diagonal off of the tube, and something I can drill holes in and screw through when I get it mounted. But that is the design. So let's start cutting. So it probably won't show up very well because my table is the same color as my parts. But you can see this is the battery tray bottom, back side, front side. We'll call these the short sides, so that'll keep it in place. And this is the strap that goes on top with the little supports. Those up here actually go into there, so it'll hang off the back. The holes will line up, put a 1/4-20 bolt through. I just added a little handle stiffener because on the bottom side of this we're going to have some probably 1/8 inch or 3/16 rubber to protect the battery. And this is that little diagonal support, so here go to the roll cage. Of course this keys in here, and this is the mount that goes onto the 3x4 rectangular kicker. Again, I'll be able to drill some holes through here, up into here, and we'll mount them down with some flat heads or button heads, something like that. So now I can put these pieces together, start tacking them together. So here we have it all tacked together. Just put the supports on here. on the uprights first, and then tack the handle together so that I could use that as a fixture when I welded it together. So right now it's just tacked, but let's put it in the car and see what it looks like. So here's a good visualization. It's going to be supported by the kicker there, but it's got to sit down a little bit more. It's actually touching on the inner wheelhouse there, but that's got to come out anyway. So what we'll do is, I think I'm happy with that. Got about 1 inch clearance on this side, but otherwise everything looks good. So let's get that out of there and finish welding it. There you have it. Have it all roughly ground, just tacked it in small spots. It's not any structural support or anything like that, it's just a battery tray. Then I clamped on, this is where the 3x4 kicker goes, and this is the roll hoop. So that's probably how I'll put them in the car, is just camp them in place, get it level both directions, and tack this on through here, and we'll drill it and bolt it in. Successfully removed the inner wheelhouse from the passenger side, so that should still give us plenty of strength because the outer is still attached to the inner kick panel. So I have to grind that up to clean it up so I don't cut the out of myself. But now that gives us plenty of room for any size tire we want to run. And the main reason we did it now is so that I can get in here and I can do some more welding between the mount here and the inner panel and get your battery box put in. So let's see if we can get that mounted up, see what it looks like. We're all tacked in now, and one final thing I wanted to check, of course I got this in the wrong spot, was to make sure that I had my height right so that the upper control arm didn't hit the bottom of the box. So without the rear end in, the johnny joint is just touching the frame, and we're not touching the battery box. It is in the correct position. So I think that's a go. And one final thing I wanted to do with the design was that if we ever needed to change battery size or do anything with that, we can't go whole over this way, but this is going to be removable, so it'll just bolt over here and bolt over there. So if we ever needed to, for some reason, to change battery size, we can go a little bit bigger, and of course we can always go smaller. So that'll do it for this segment. Got the battery mounted in there, so I went ahead and drilled these two together. Same thing on this side, just use little 1/8 inch holes to locate where everything's going to be. I'll pick up some small flat heads, whatever I can find locally, in the next couple days to put those together. But the battery is in there with a hold down strap. No, I don't have any rubber on the bottom yet because we've got to paint all this stuff, but I got some rubber with adhesive on the bottom so that it'll attach to this. We can always put some in here, but I think that is going to work very, very well. I'm really happy with how it turned out and the height and everything else. So with this battery we can either run the posts or it's got the screw terminals on the other side, but should have enough room to get it in there because I think the harness bar is going to go somewhere up in here. So we should have enough room if the harness bar is up here to go ahead and pull the battery out. If not, always put a hinge in here, but so far I'm very happy. So I think this will be a good place to wind this video up, and we'll find the next thing on the list to work on. But the current list is getting smaller, but I'm sure there's, as you can tell, there's a ton more to do. But we're getting there.